God bless you one and all, and welcome back to the Bishop's Corner. I'll be your host for tonight, and my name is Bishop Dr. Herbert in Scott, the Chief Prelate of the Liberty Hall Cathedral of Praise, right here in the heart of Brooklyn. Welcome one and all to the Bishop's Corner. And of course, we do want to shout out to the man of God himself, the visionary for the Bishop's Corner, and that is none other than Philip Reed, who is affectionately known as Dr. Phil. Well, tonight we do want to honor God, and for the illustrious panel that we do have tonight, we just want to thank God for the lovely Dr. Dolores Ben that is with us tonight. Certainly, woman of God, always indeed a pleasure to have you on the Bishop's Corner. Next, we want to thank God for the man of God himself from up north, Bishop Dr. Neville G. Wolliston is in the house, and we want to thank God for the man of God. He comes with so much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Man of God, certainly indeed. It's a pleasure one more time to have you on the Bishop's Corner. We are blessed tonight in having with us Pastor Matthew McGee, a young man that God has blessed doing a tremendous job in Brooklyn, and we thank God for his wisdom. Even at a young age, God has blessed him with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. We want to thank God once again for a young lady that came on some time back, and she was a tremendous blessing. The Right Reverend, I believe, Jacqueline Alder, that's with us. Certainly, woman of God, we thank God for you and for the ministry that you are indeed successfully doing. And also, we want to thank God for a wonderful woman of God that blesses us every time she comes on, young, but filled with so much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Minister Lucien Pagan, that's with us in the house. Can we put our hands together and make her feel welcome? Certainly, we want to welcome the panel tonight to the Bishop's Corner. And once again, we have a very, very interesting topic that we are dealing with. We are continuing with the topic, the subject, should I stay or should I go? Should I stay or should I go? And let me say this, that there is so much gems, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding in these words. And I'm sure that tonight you are going to be blessed and blessed tremendously. Well, our questions for tonight are these. Can there be a marriage without commitment? A marriage without commitment? Is that really possible? Second question is outgrowing a person grounds for divorce? And what do we really mean by outgrowing a person? Third and last question is mental illness grounds for divorce? Is mental illness grounds for divorce? Well, let's begin with question number one, which is, can there be a marriage without commitment? And I want to put that first question to our Dr. Dolores Ben tonight, woman of God. We know that you've been married for many, many years. And if anyone has the answer, Dr. Dolores Ben does have the answer. Woman of God, how say you, can there be a marriage without commitment?
Well, I'm going to be controversial. First of all, good night to all. May God bless you. Good night to our audience. And it's great to be here tonight. Can there be a marriage without commitment? And I say to you, yes, there can be a marriage without commitment. But here's the defining factor. It depends on your motive for getting married. Okay? In this present culture, and most of us are well aware that a lot of people get married for different issues or for different reasons. Example being for legal status that we call the green card. Okay, they get married. Some people get married for security. I've got 3 or 4 children, 5 children. I can't take care of them on my own. And here comes Johnny, and he says he loves me, and that's all right. but he will help me take care of these children. So I will marry him. You call that security or financial stability. There are other types of marriages, like arranged marriages, where one wealthy family would say to another, we've got to keep this wealth within the family. So they marry son and daughter. They're legally married, and marriage is honored before God. Okay? And that is marriage as we see it by the world system. But I want to zero in on the Christian marriage. For me, I categorize marriage into two categories. Those that know God and live by God's principle, and those that don't know God and live by the principles of the world. Because marriage is honorable in all, God would honor it. But as for the Christian marriage, a Christian marriage cannot exist without commitment. A Christian marriage is based on that covenant. We really take it seriously where we say, you're bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. We honor the covenant before God. So therefore, we are committed one to the other until death we do part. And that's my opening statement today, Bishop.
You're muted, Bishop.
Okay, well said indeed, but let me ask you a question.
Yes.
When we mention the word commitment, how do you see commitment? What is commitment really? Because the question is, can there be a marriage without commitment? So how do we view commitment?
For me, commitment is, there is no clear demarcation from where my husband ends and where I begin.
Mm-hmm.
Our lives are so intertwined with each other that we really become one. I look out for his well-being, and he has me covered.
Commitment. Thank you very much, woman of God. Okay, now let's hear from a male, a man of God that's been married for yes, quite some time. So if anyone should know, Bishop Dr. Neville Wolliston should definitely know. Bishop, how say you, sir?
Yeah, God bless you, Bishop. And to my fellow panelists and our guests, thank you so much for joining us. And to our friends that are not on tonight, we are keeping them in our prayers. Yeah, I thank Dr. Ben for her expository, her explanation. I think it was well presented, especially coming from the angle that she came from, both from a Christian and non-Christian point of view. Bishop, unfortunately, we live in a day and time now where everything has to be defined. Because I could look at this and ask, okay, commitment to what? Commitment to putting the toilet seat down? Commitment to picking up my shoes? Commitment to getting home on time? And this is where we are in this generation. Everything has to be defined. Yeah. What is commitment? What is love? What is? This is where we are. But just to keep it short, and again, I'll go from a Christian point of view. The short answer for me is no. Why? Because commitment is a basic fundamental component to any relationship. Commitment, fundamental, basic. It's fundamental. It should be basic. So then without that commitment, Bishop, what do we really have? Because even Jesus himself demanded a commitment from his followers. He says, listen, if you're going to follow me, you've got to forsake, I'm talking about total commitment here. Mother, father, brother, sister, house, land, you've got to forget all of that if you love me. So I think commitment is fundamental. It's basic, especially, well, from a Christian point of view. Dr. Ben, of course, laid it out, whereas you have arranged marriages or convenience marriages. We're not talking about those. I'm not saying those things don't happen, but for the believer, it has to be basic and foundational, just like our relationship with Jesus Christ. Who are we committed to? What are we committed to? I'm committed to the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm committed to love. I'm committed to live that Christian life. I'm committed to forsake all others. I'm committed. And I think, unfortunately, Bishop, the culture that we live in,
yes,
that C word, not good.
Not good indeed, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, let me ask you this question, man of God, and I'll also put this generally to, those of you that's on. What then is the purpose of commitment? What would you say is the purpose of commitment?
Well, from a marital point of view, obviously, it's two individuals committing to each other to short-term, do life, if you will, exclusively. I'm committed to my wife as long as she's committed to me. We're not into the entanglement kind of thing. Oh no, we're not. We're not subscribing to that. So I'm committed to her. So there's an exclusivity when it comes to commitment. It's kind of like Jesus said it again. Hey, you can't serve two masters. You're going to love one or you're going to hate the other. So again, going back to what I said earlier, commitment has to be foundational. It's the basic foundational component of any relationship.
Mm-hmm. I believe that commitment, it really creates a bond of mutual trust and understanding. And that is so missing in today's relationship. So I believe that commitment is something that is absolutely necessary. Okay.
Would you say it's outdated, Bishop?
Ooh, how do you feel about that, man of God? How would you say?
In some areas here, not only in marriage. I mean, take our churches, for instance.
Sure.
We give folks the right hand of fellowship. We accept them in, we throw parties, so to speak, and we put them on front stage. And we're hoping that they commit to the ministry. If God moves you or places you or take you away, that's totally different. But I'm tired. I don't like the way how he preaches anymore.
Man of God, we are from the old school. Well, I'm from the old school. I can't talk about you, but listen, I love you, my brother. I agree with you. Okay, let's ask at this time, Reverend Jacqueline Alder. Woman of God, how say you pertaining to commitment? Can there be a marriage without commitment?
Bishop, I say there can't be a marriage without commitment, but there can be an agreement. See, there's a difference between an agreement and a marriage. So I feel like, no, there cannot be a marriage without commitment, because a lack of commitment means that I'm a free agent, that I have no boundaries. And that, so if I'm not committed to you and you're not committed to me, then I do what I do, you do what you do, and nobody is really accountable to anybody. So I'm a free agent. I'm like the basketball player that his time just expired with the team, and I'm out there rolling, and I'm available to whoever want me to be available to them. So I say no.
So then, woman of God,
but I also say that a lot of people have a problem with commitment. And the problem with commitment means that if there's no commitment, there's no expectation. See, and this is the way you get away from you expecting me to do something. A lot of times people have been so hurt, abused, and that's from the church to your marriage, to your jobs, to your everything. When you've been used and abused and you don't feel like that you are worth anything and your worthiness is not there, then you are afraid of commitment. So a person that's been abused in one place, it's hard for them to transfer to another place and feel worthy. They feel like you have to earn it. So therefore, I say that no commitment means that there's no expectation, and if there is no expectation, then we don't have anything secure. And I think a lot of the commitment issues come from fear.
I
Fear
agree.
of what you're going to do to me.
Yeah.
I fear of being hurt, fear of being disappointed, fear of being used, fear of being abused. That's the way I feel about it.
Are you saying that in the marriage or before the marriage, before you get to marriage?
Well, if someone's been in a relationship, Bishop, and they've had a lot of things to happen, and they've committed themselves totally, and they spent 20 years into a marriage prior, and they've been abused and hurt. Now it's time to commit again. I say before, I say during. People are saying, no, I need to weigh this out. I need to look at it for a minute because I'm fearful of what I've been through that is going to happen again.
So then, woman of God, let me ask you this question. What does it mean to be totally committed?
Totally committed is I'm sold out. It's everything. I'm pouring everything into you without any boundaries, which means that when I'm totally committed to you, there's no boundaries to it. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to respect you. I'm going to support you. You know, I was listening to the last week and how you say a lot of people want to take out for better, for worse, rich or poorer, for, sickness and health. So to me, totally committed is that no matter what state we find ourselves in, I'm going to be there. I'm going to have your back. I'm going to have your front, your back, your side to side. I'm not walking, by no means necessary. I'm going to fight for what it is that I believe that God has put us together. I say, if what God put together, that no man put us under, well, I'm going to fight for it. So which means I'm all the way in. There's no coming out of it.
So do you think that we should know whether we are in it or not before we say I do?
I do believe it, but Bishop, I'm gonna back up to it. I'm gonna tell you, yes, you should be, because really knowing that you're fully in it, but not always does it happen that way. So now maybe, but if you get in it and you were raised like I hear a lot of us was raised, then you realize that nothing happens without work. If you get into a job that you thought you can do and you realize that I committed to something, but I really don't have what it takes to make it happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go take a couple of classes and I'm going to go talk to a few people that have really mastered this, and I'm going to figure it out somehow, some way, because I'm committed.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, Minister Lucy Pagan, a woman of God, I see you nodding your head. Okay, please tell me, can there be a marriage relationship without commitment?
If we're sticking to the literal question, I would have to say no. You can't have a real marriage without commitment. I mean, a marriage is a covenant, and when you come into covenant with someone, you are committing, yourself completely to that person and vice versa. And now that comes with everything. Commitment, when you go into a marriage, you commit and you commit to them, you're making a choice, and you're making the choice to love this person. You're making the choice to protect this person. You're making the choice to back this person up. It is a choice that you make, that you both commit, that we're going to choose every day to love one another, no matter what. I understand, vows, people have written them and, you say them and all of that. So, but, when you commit to someone, as Dr. Jacqueline was saying, you commit to them wholeheartedly. So you do commit to them. We use the traditional vows in, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health. No matter what condition we're in, the love and the commitment I have for you does not change, because I am marrying you, the person. I'm in love with you. So I don't believe you can have a healthy marriage and a Christian marriage without commitment. I just don't see how you can have one without the other.
Let me just ask a general question to you, Lucy, and to anyone that would like to respond. Are there any benefits in commitment?
Peace of mind.
Yes, I need to know that, and it's me as a woman. I need to know that the man that I am marrying is committed to my well-being all the way around, not just loving me, but protecting me spiritually, protecting me mentally, protecting me emotionally. When it comes to the provision, it's not just the financial provision, but it's all of it. So yeah, it's
Right.
it's very, very important. And I just wanted to touch real quick on something that Dr. Jacqueline said. You mentioned how people sometimes are so scared of commitment because of what they've gone through in the past, and this is why, and I learned this myself because it was something that I committed to after I had my divorce. A lot of people don't take the time after a marriage, whether it's abusive, to actually heal, to become whole again. And a lot of the mistakes that people make is that they end a relationship, they just, okay, it didn't work. They go a couple months or a year or something like that. They feel okay. And then they think that they're ready to get into a relationship, but they haven't dealt with the core causes of what happened in the previous marriage and the trauma. And it takes years. You cannot heal in 1 year if you've been in a marriage for 20 years. There's layers, and people don't realize that you don't just have to address what happened in your previous marriage, but you have to address what got you there. And sometimes you have to go before that marriage to figure out what was it that got you into this place. Why did you attract what you attract? Why did you allow what you allowed? So it goes a lot deeper than that. So I always tell people, based on my own experience, take the time to heal. If it takes you 5 years, stay single for 5 years, but make yourself whole. So then when you do commit to someone, you're actually committing to them wholeheartedly without making them pay for what someone else did, without making them pay for your fears and insecurities, because they're not the cause of that.
Amen. Well said indeed, young lady. So much knowledge. God bless you richly. Okay, I want to put that same question pertaining to commitment to a young man, Pastor Matthew McGee. Man of God, how say you?
Blessings, Bishop, and blessings to everyone on the panel. Definitely a powerful and a rich topic area. I'm going to answer the question, the first question, but I want to answer quickly the very last question you asked, Bishop, about what are some of the benefits of commitment.
Yes.
And I would say, because we can make a list out of that, but one word comes to mind when you ask that question, and that word is stability. One of the benefits of commitment is stability. I think commitment breeds quite a few things. And again, before I go down that road, let me just answer the question outright. I concur with everyone on the panel that said that a Christian marriage, there's no way that can exist without commitment. Commitment breeds stability. It breeds security. I heard Dr. Jacqueline allude to the fact that it establishes expectations. And that's a huge component in why a lot of marriages or just relationships, whether you want to talk about even sometimes family relationships where there's a rift and a breakdown there, friendships, just if you look at our general relationships, whatever they might be throughout our life, even if we're not going to the Christian marriage construct, if you just look at the equation of what sustains healthy friendships, family relationships, it's established expectations. Most of the times where the miscommunication comes in is that somebody had expectations that the other person didn't know. And so they're expecting one thing, and then the other person is expecting another thing, and they never communicated the actual expectations. Well, commitment brings all of that to the table, front and center. So there should be established like protocols within the marriage, the do's and the don'ts. What presses your buttons? What pushes your buttons? Things that rub you wrong or that rub me wrong. And we have these conversations. And so commitment really kind of covers a lot of ground, I believe, Bishop. It covers a lot of ground. Healthy boundaries. I think I heard Dr. Jacqueline also allude to that. Healthy boundaries. Commitment establishes not only expectations, but boundaries. Without commitment, there's no boundaries. Anything goes. You can leave. You can leave. You can stay out as long as you want. You can come back in anytime you want. You can do whatever. You can go out with another woman, another man, or what. Without commitment. And so the next word that comes to mind, and I'll conclude here, is intentionality. You need intentionality to even talk about commitment. It brings a level of intentionality that you prioritize this.
Mhm.
You prioritize that marriage, that relationship. So it's something that it means something to you. So it brings definition. So commitment brings definition. Without commitment, you don't have a defined thing. You don't have a defined thing. What is it? What is it? What is it? A buddy system? What are we, besties? What are we, hangout partners? You know what I'm saying? Like, commitment brings definition. So that's my retort on that question.
Hey, Bishop,
Go ahead.
just as I was thinking, how is our commitment? We're talking from a Christian point of view, marriage. How is my commitment to my marriage different to the commitment I have to my faith or the commitment for Christ? Now, all of us that's on this panel are saved. Some of us are pastors, leaders. We've been tempted with quitting, church folk, church hurt, finances, challenges, ministries. We've name it, we've had it. But don't we stay committed? The marriage will face all kinds of challenges.
Yes, sir.
Including infidelity. It's out there. We can throw that in there. Challenges with your children, finances, ex, the list goes on. How is my commitment to my marriage different from the commitment I have to my faith as a Christian? Because again, a commitment is a commitment.
Yes, sir. I believe that we should definitely stay focused. Definitely stay focused, just as how we have to be persistent in which we believe in. I think it's the same thing with our marriage relationship. Is there anyone that would like to say something concerning?
I would just like to add two other benefits. I concur with all that has been said. Two other benefits of commitment, and one of them is good mental health. When you're committed, it improves your mental health. And research has shown that couples that are committed one to the other, they enjoy a better physical health than those that are not committed one to the other, and they live longer.
And stress is a killer, huh?
And they live longer. And that's why Dolores Bell is going to live until she's 150 years of age and still look as good. But the question that I want to put to you, woman of God, and to the panel in general is, how does one stay committed? How does one stay committed? And you could even contrast that to the spiritual life. How does one stay committed to the Lord? And how does one stay committed to the relationship?
Anyone can chime in, Bishop?
Of course,
go ahead. Yes.
If I would say, and I'm sure there's a lot that could be said on that, but I think a part of how does one stay committed is just establishing certain principles within your own life, certain ethics, certain things that are the do's and don'ts for you. Establishing those things clearly, priorities, protocols, whatever you want to call it, but establishing a clear line of, like, these are the principles that I live my life by. I heard Bishop Neville Wolliston talking about the comparison with our faith, commitment with our faith versus commitment in marriage. How do we stay committed to our faith? It's by understanding the Word of God and how that applies to my life, how that relates to different scenarios and situations that I'm going to face in my life, the challenges that come in my life. Because the truth of the matter is, challenges are going to come in almost every dynamic and every compartment of life, whether that's in relationship, marriages, or in our faith. What gives us the ability to have resiliency, bounce back, stick-to-itiveness, sustainability, longevity. What gives us that ability is by having an established set of principles and guidelines that we live by. And we call that the Word of God. And so there are certain things that will allow us to better commit to certain things.
Bishop, can I just make a quick clarification or clarity here as far as Pastor was speaking. I just came to my mind as far as making the comparison to your faith and to your marriage. So one could argue, and I would agree, that in your faith, it's you and Jesus, so you and God. You understand? And he's good. He's not going to, he's good. It's me to live up to, but now it's myself and another individual, a flawed person, or I am flawed. Yes, I'm committed to that person, but is he or she totally committed to me? Whereas with my faith, oh, I know he's committed. There's no question about him not leaving me. It's only question, do I want to leave him? But with my spouse,
yes,
it's two individuals, two flawed individuals. So I don't want anyone to get the idea that, oh, well, I was committed, but look at us now. So please understand, with the marital relationship, it's both of us, two flawed individuals butting heads who probably don't want to resolve issues. But with me and my Savior, with me and God, with me and Jesus, oh, he's good. I just have to stay committed to him because he's not going to leave me. Now, I just want to take one word from Pastor McKee, intentionality. Just like you got that bachelor's degree, that master's degree, that PhD, that nursing, the RN, the LPN, you stayed the course for 4 years. You were committed to it. Sleepless nights, study, partner, buddy, homework partners, the list goes on. So I think commitment really speaks to intentionality. Do I intend to finish my degree? Do I intend to get the job? Do I intend to go back to school? Do I intend to live this marriage through for better, for worse, till we get old, just like I intend for my faith? So intentionality, I think that's a strong word, Bishop.
Amen. Anyone else like to chime in?
Bishop, I also I think that some of this too is when we're looking at our natural marriages and our natural lives, we have to also, I think, agree sometimes to disagree. Everybody wants to be right. Everybody wants to be the one that we have to learn to agree to disagree. And so because we disagree on something doesn't mean that our commitment, you need to go in that room and I go in this room, and our connection gets broken. You have to agree to disagree, that no matter what happens, I might think I'm right, you might think you're wrong, but one thing we are not going to do is we're not going to allow the enemy or nobody else to come between us and start separating ourselves. The enemy has a way to separate you. He causes something and then it separates you. And once he separates you, then he starts to questioning your relationship and yourself. And a lot of times we question something that don't even have a question mark to it, but we put one in a place it doesn't belong. And that's because we get married. And a lot of times we go to counseling I hear people say, I'm going to counseling before I get married. Well, a lot of times I've been in a couple of those sessions, and nothing against nobody, but when you bring people in a counseling session, you must remind them that they're not going to always agree, because you get them in these counseling sessions and you start telling them the pretty side of marriage, and as long as you cook and you clean and you help and you listen and no, honey, we know all about that. Somebody told us that, and we watch enough Lifetime. What I need you to tell me now is that there's going to be a day I'm going to walk in the house and he's going to say something that I don't totally agree to. How do you teach me to manage my attitude, my body movement, my actions, and when I don't agree?
Right.
I'm into that.
That's good.
Because that breaks commitment.
That's good.
Anyone else like to chime in?
I do agree, Pastor Jay. That is awesome. And it just brings me back, if I could be a little transparent, with when we first got married. We both sat down and spoke about what my needs were, what his needs were. And we took those needs and we created boundaries. We made one general list that we both committed to and agreed to. That's how we're going to live our lives. And one of the statements my husband said, and it has been with us for years, we can disagree with each other, but we will maintain the love. And that was one of our foundations.
Yes.
I can disagree with you, and I'll maintain that love because I'm committed. I wouldn't say to you what I don't mean. I would not be mean and cruel. Even though I disagree, I would know how to keep my body in check, how to keep my mouth in check, because as long as those words are spoken, you can be as sorry as you want. They have already entered your ear gate, and they already cause hurt. So you can disagree with each other, but maintain the love. And constantly that intentionality, we walked with that down through 43 years.
Wow.
Awesome.
I will
Awesome.
disagree, but I'm going to keep that love. I know who you are. You're my covering. You mean well. I may not understand what you're doing and how you're doing it, but because I'm committed, I'm going to stay the course. You know, I would still look at you as the best thing that ever walked the face of this earth because I'm committed.
Yes, yes.
And you know what,
Dr. Ben, two questions real quick. Do you think that can work today? Number one.
Yes,
and number two, do you think we can teach that to our young people and they'll get it?
Yes, we can. Here's what. The best people to start teaching to are your children. My first daughter is married now for 15 years. My second daughter is married for 13. And my son is married for 11 years. And we taught them that. Disagree with each other, but keep that love. Maintain that love.
Yes.
Learn how to talk to each other. Don't say to your spouse something out of haste or anger that you don't really mean, and you're going to have to take it back. You really can't. It's like feathers you throw into the air, you know? So I honestly believe it can be taught. But as Pastor Jackie says, you see that openness and that willing spirit, that is so essential when two people come together. It's you and me, but it's no longer you and me, but it's us.
Okay, great.
Could I just say one thing, Bishop?
Sure.
And it's just referring to, I love what Dr. Dolores was just really sharing there. And one of the things that I usually say to a lot of my younger people in the church, and even just the church as a general rule of thumb, just a lot of just wisdom tools. I always say, you used to mention that quote about disagreeing. I always say to them, we have to learn how to disagree and not dishonor. It's such a thing. I think that people struggle with understanding that just because I don't agree with another person doesn't give me the right to dishonor them.
Yes.
You know, some of us, I think we equate disagreeing with having to act
Disrespect.
out and disrespect. And so if we learn those things, again, on the regular relational levels, because a lot of times, you know, we carry a lot of that nasty, toxic stuff into more intimate relationships because we're not even good on regular friendship level relationships because we do a lot of toxic stuff on that level too. And then just the next thing there is what you were saying in terms of just the fact that you guys were very intentional. And when it comes to the fact that your children are in committed relationships. And I thought that brought to light a very powerful revelatory point, that commitment is something that we can create an atmosphere and a culture within the family construct that then teaches our children. So I think one of the benefits, then Bishop Scott asked that powerful question, what are some of the benefits of commitment? I think you just unpacked something right there. It's a healthy family dynamic. It creates commitment, creates a healthy family culture where our children can see, look at mommy and daddy, look at how they love each other, look at how they operate. Well, it gives them a template that they can carry on. So I think that's one of the benefits as
Pastor
well.
McGee, I totally agree with what you're saying, but I brought that up to Dr. Ben from the standpoint or the point of view of, let's look at, and let's call it for what it is, housewives of LA or Beverly Hills or hip hop and this. And we see what they put out there. And let's not pretend that our kids and our church kids are not watching that kind of stuff. The Dr. Ben, of course, we love her and her examples are great, but she's not out there. And I don't mean that in a bad way. She's in a, no, I'm being serious. Yeah, of course, I commend you. I mean, my parents, we learned from them. We had a template. My parents were married for 57 years. My mother-in-law and my mother-in-law, my in-laws, maybe another 56. So we have good templates, good examples. But my fear is, Dr. Ben, we are competing with housewives of LA. And then the other day now we had preachers of LA and God knows who else we got. And these things are in our kids' hands 24/7, and they only see one Bishop Scott, one Dr. Ben, one Bishop Wolliston. I'm just wondering, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm just wondering, the effect that is happening. So, I think someone said it earlier. Oh, Pastor Jackie said it earlier. Oh, how do I check my attitude? How do I deal with, I don't like what he's doing right now. I don't like what he said. How do I fit my attitude? How do I change my posture? My face is telling me something. My body language is saying something without saying nothing. These are things that we have. And this younger generation, Doc, I don't know if they're going to make it, but I'm praying.
Well, we can't really affect everyone and change everyone. We can only affect the people that are surrounding us. That's the best that we can do. And we hope that they too will bless the people that are surrounding them and so forth, that this thing can be far-reaching. But we've got to be very, very careful in the sense that it's like a stone. Once you throw a stone, there is no way you can bring it back. Yeah. Okay, I want to ask a general question because I like to ask questions because I've got the experts that can answer. How can I improve my commitment skills? How can I improve my commitment skills? Now, remember that Dr. Dolores Ben just said that she and her husband has been married now, for 43 years. And I am sure that they've been talking, and they did not see everything eye to eye. But the question is, how can I improve my commitment skills? Anyone?
I think for me, Bishop, personally, for me, what worked for me was just understanding. Understand her better, and don't take for granted that she understood what I said or the things that I'm doing. So I think for me personally, it's just understanding her better, and it will make the commitment that much better. That's personally for me.
Understand her better, meaning go beneath the appearance.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because sometimes we take for granted. That she understands and she knows, but she don't. So I have to, whether bring myself closer, down, or whatever, and say, you know what? Okay, I get it. Because you don't get it. Let's try to understand each other and see where we're going. So I think understanding is key.
Anyone else?
For me, it's keeping the lines of communication open. Understanding his love languages. What makes him happy. I'm an avid believer that as I give to you in turn, you would reciprocate unto me. So keeping myself open mind, open heart, not quick to judge or categorize, always esteeming my husband better than anybody else. For me, he's the greatest. And it doesn't matter, every wife should think that their husband is the greatest and the best. Okay, and that's the mindset. I'm committed. You're the best thing. It's like a horse having blinders. I only focus and zero in on you because you are my mate. We are going to make it together. We are journeying on this path called life together. And that's how I see it. And just to throw a little thread out there, everybody asks, the average person would say, would you marry me? My husband said, would you walk through the journey of life with me?
Mm-hmm. Dr. Ben, I'm going to tell him. Everything. I love it. Anyone else like to chime in on that?
So, Dr. Dolores, I have a question for you from what you just said. So you said you're a true believer. If I commit to you, then you will in return commit to me. What happens when you commit to them 100% and 5 years has passed and you have not gotten anything in return? Am I now in a place of should I go or should I stay, or do I just keep staying?
Listen, I love that question and thank you for asking it, because I know a lot of people are in that position. Marriage, as my husband always says, marriage is never 50-50, but it's 100-100. Mm-hmm. I am in it for the long haul. Unless I was totally blind when I got married and I had no expectations, or I would know if you are committed to me. And when I perceive that you mean grow in commitment, we grow together, somebody always has to take the lead. And I have no problem staying and being committed because you're my spouse. If this man is not abusing me, we are together, I'm happy, I'm contented. All my needs may not be met. And this is something that we have to understand in marriage. All your needs won't ever be met by your spouse. Am I going to leave then because he doesn't meet all my needs? Or do we get together? When I keep the lines of communication open, we have regular times that we sit. We call them me times. We call them date nights, that we sit and we just talk. And I could say to you then, because we are keeping the lines of communication open, and I would never say to you what I don't mean or anything to hurt or demean you, I feel as though all my needs are not being met. When you do this, it makes me feel like, because I'm talking about me, and open up to your mate. Marriage is work. You've got to work on it, and marriage should have growth. Anything without growth is stagnated and it would die. So you've got to open yourself without fear, learn how to trust your mate. And as you open and you communicate, you should be able to grow together.
But Dr. Ben, if I can just quickly. Oh, go ahead, Pastor Jay. Go ahead. No,
so I'm going to turn in from the younger generation. I understand mama them and daddy them and you and Bishop, and I'm not throwing Bishop. I'm acting like I'm so young, but I'm going there. I understand that you all had to stay. And you had to, no matter what, I'm here. I'm in it to win it at any cost, by any means necessary. But here I am, a young woman, and I'm living in a world of even the church, because we have to be transparent now. The church is not what it used to be when it comes to guiding you through marriage and all of that. So I just want to throw that in there. Even with the church has a different perspective now also about marriage and whatever. So they still, I'm behind. In the front, the church says stay, but behind, the church also says go. So now I'm a young woman, and I didn't come from that era of mama them and daddy them who was taught to stay. I was taught that this is a quick life. Life is passing me by fast, and I must capitalize on what I can right now in a hurry. So, and then I'm also being taught that zero tolerance. The church has a good way of teaching you zero tolerance. What you don't have to deal with, what you don't have to put up with, because go next door and it's easier over there. I've heard Bishop say that earlier. And go next door. Oh, he teaching you that you got to cook every day. Next door, they say everybody a man for himself. So now you run it next door to the church and every man for himself and God for us all. And then you go down there and they say, oh, he ain't working. He couldn't find a job in 6 months. Get rid of him. Don't feed him. The Bible says a man that don't work, don't eat. The Bible says, so now I'm in this marriage and I'm going to people that I'm dependent on to keep us grounded and to keep me understanding the difference of where I am right now, because nobody is always in a good place. I heard T.D. Jakes say one time, yeah, I've been married all these years, but I am not about to tell that all those years was good days. I had to fight through some hard times. So where is it that where's the line that you're going to say that, okay, hard times is here and they're lasting just because I'm showing up? And two saved people, I'm gonna let it go in a minute, but let me finish this point. Two saved people going to church, sitting on the same bench, can still hear two different things. I could hear it being taught to me one way, and my husband could be sitting right next to me and hear it another way. So I said that to say this. So now we are two people in the same place hearing the same thing, but getting the same results from it. So what do you say to me because today I go to church on Sunday and they say, well, you got the Bible says man that don't work, don't eat. So if he ain't working, then you shouldn't be feeding him, housing him, da, 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 da. And then I go back on Wednesday night and mother from the Amen corner sits there and say, you're going to labor there with him until change come. So now you're confusing me. So, and that's what I brought these points because I counsel a lot of young people, young women who is in relationships they have husbands, they're in marriages, and they're so confused, and not because of their husband or the people at work. They're confused because of the church. So what are you saying to us that that's going to get us a little bit more grounded? Or I hear what you're saying, and I know what you're saying, because I had to say my mama was a pastor, and I understand that, and my mama was in the stay ministry. But what happens when the stay ministry just don't work for the day and age that the people are now, all because of confusion from what they're being taught?
So, Pastor Jay, I'm not going to answer for Dr. Ben, but let me just say this real quick, and I feel you. I got you 100%. Hindsight is 20/20. And now we're talking about two saved people in church, correct? Not non-Christians. Two Christians, primarily? Okay. Truth be told, these two should have never gotten married in the first place. They were probably counseled against it, or they got married for the wrong reasons, whether she was tired of being alone, she knew he wasn't working, she knew he was barely saved, and she knew all of that. And she went against counsel, or they probably even didn't go to counsel. Let's talk about counsel for a second. If they had gone to real proper Christian counseling with mental health evaluation and the whole nine, that counsel would say to them, you two are not compatible. Can two walk unless they agree? You two are not compatible. If they choose to go, I've done it, Pastor Jay. Said to people, look, you guys, I can't see it happening. Guess what? They go anyway. What am I supposed to do? Then all hell breaks loose. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't know if there's any real answer for that. I hear what you're saying. I've heard it before and I've seen it many times. But truth be told, this marriage should never have happened. And if it happened, they should have had intense counseling, not no 2 months, 3 months. I mean, intense counseling. Down south, most of the church, they do like an evaluation kind of thing before they start counseling, because my brother's a part of that. He's into a ministry. They do an evaluation. It's not, hey, I like you, you like me, we get married. Oh, no. And this is church folks. This is not outsiders. They do an intense evaluation, comparison, see how compatible both of you are. And if the counselor finds out that you're not compatible, he's going to say, you can do whatever you want to do. So I'm just saying, we're sympathize for that wife or whoever is in that situation. I understand, I do sympathize, but truth be told, they should never have gotten together in the first place. He's barely saved. You knew he was drinking. You knew he was still in the street. You knew all of this. He comes to church once a month, but you talking about, oh, I'm going to change him. Change who? Wherever you find your husband, when it's all said and done, that's where you're going to be. If you find him in the streets and brought him to church or got married, if you found him in the club, wherever you found him, I want to find my wife in the church because that's where she's going to be. So it's really sad, and I'm really compassionate about things like these. But Pastor Jay, these two individuals, those in those situations, truth be told, they should never have they seen those red flags, and you know what you do with red flags. Red means stop. It don't mean go, unfortunately. But again, they're in that situation. We have to be compassionate to try to help them through it.
So what are you going to do with these tambourine players that ain't smoking, ain't drinking, sitting in church, and so they reap and save and saying they're saved and sanctified. They ain't drinking, they ain't partying, they ain't clubbing, they in church every time the church door is open. And then you sitting at church, and they sitting here telling these young girls the church is really a really place that sets these people up for these marriages. They tell them, encourages them, because they want them tambourine players to get married and know good and well that them people are not. There are issues, and I think it goes back to, I think Dr. Ben, we were talking about that before everybody got on, about discernment. And so where is it? Where is it? What do you do after the church have set a marriage up with these young people? I'm worried about the young people. I'm not worried about Dr. Ben, because Dr. Ben has done it, been there, done that. She's got brownie points in it. Bishop, you've been there, done it, got brownie points. Bishop Scott, you got your points. I'm here telling you, I'm questioning you about the young people that's in survival mode right now, that don't have the brownie points, and they're trying to get some. But you are sitting here, and the church folks know these are some tambourine players. Okay, I'm gonna take it on raw for you. They know these are some little gay men in this church, and they know good and well they're setting these little girls up for failure with these little gay men. I'm gonna stop calling them tambourine players and call them what it is. And then you say to them, don't go, don't stay, but then you're mad that they're in that house with them. So do you disrespect them like that, or do you let them just live their life? What are we doing?
So can I chime in, only because a lot of the different scenarios that, and if we're going to keep it transparent, and if my story can help someone, glory to God. So I'm a younger person. I just turned 40 this year. I got married young, and I'm going to reference Dr. Ben, and I'm also going to reference Bishop, because they both said things that I related to. One, my parents are going to celebrate now 41 years in 2 weeks of being married. So I was raised very traditionally, my grandparents till death did them part, my aunt till death did them part, my parents are still together. So my view of marriage was a very healthy view of marriage. I understood there was ups and downs, but I also witnessed the communication, the commitment, the love, respect. My parents are pastors. I came through the birth canal and was an instant PK. So ministry is, the only thing I've ever known. But now in my situation, when I went into the marriage, again, with intentionality. I did not go into my marriage ever expecting to get a divorce and all of that. But I will agree with Bishop Wolliston that if I had gone through a very intense premarital counseling, I feel that I could have saved myself from what I went through. To also speak to Sister Jacqueline, which you were speaking of, and this is where now it's going to get very transparent. Yes, the church, pushes marriage and all of that, and we understand why and all of that. But we also live, and this goes to the younger generation, into something that needs to be addressed. We are living in a very narcissistic, culture and narcissistic generation where a lot of people are just for themselves. They're selfish. They want their needs met. You're looking at social media where people don't even know who they are. So Dr. Ben, when you had that conversation, when you and your husband had that conversation, and you guys were able to set the boundaries and understand each other, and Bishop Wolliston, when you said that you made it a point to understand your spouse, that is when you learn to, okay, I want to know how you need to be loved, and vice versa. So we speak each other's languages.
Right.
But again, that communication, the understanding, that counseling, let me tell you, had I gone through that counseling, I would save myself from a lot, because unfortunately, even with my ex-husband, it came out that he was, had a homosexual lifestyle. So had I gone through premarital counseling, that would have come out, especially the type of counseling that you're speaking of, where it's not just, hey, we're just going to find out what you guys like and have you come to agreement. No, let's see your credit score. Let's see what debt you're in. Let's, what is your upbringing? What is it that you grew up seeing? There's people that my relationship, on top of me finding out that, he was attracted to the opposite sex, he was very mentally and emotionally abusive. I come to find out that, the past that he said to me was not pretty accurate. He witnessed abuse from his own father towards his mother. And instead of breaking the pattern, he repeated it and then some. So that counseling, not only is it crucial, but the people receiving the counseling, even as women, we have to be willing to accept the results and the outcome of that counseling, and not just stick to the fact that, oh, I need to get married now. All my friends got married and I'm the last one. Forget that. Save yourself the sorrow, the pain, and listen to it. And that discernment is so important, because I was young. And like I said, when I got divorced and I took all these years to heal and all that, the hardest thing to do, but it was the most crucial thing, was to look at myself in the mirror and realize that I had a part in what I got into, because there were red flags, there were signs. But when you're in the relationship and your focus is on marriage, you ignore them because this is what you want. Yes. You know what I mean? You want the marriage, you want to be in a relationship. So you say, oh, I can live with that. Oh, no. Those micro things become macro, and that will literally ruin your marriage. And it doesn't matter how committed you are, those little things will resurface. And one thing that I would love women and men as well to always pay attention, especially when you're in the relationship before you get married, is the difference between, and this is something I've learned, is to treat people as they are, not as you want them to be. Because I'm telling you, just as you said, the tambourine players, what I'm talking, and I mean, I'm just joking around, but what I'm talking about is there's a lot of behavior modification, and you have to be able to discern that. People will modify their behavior to meet whatever, void that they pick up, or whatever it is that they see, women with daddy issues, or women with abandonment issues, or women with attachment issues. They can smell that a mile away, and vice versa. You know what I mean? So Dr. Ben, I loved how you and your husband were able to come to that. But what I noticed, or what I picked up when you mentioned that, was that you guys were both two very confident and whole individuals. And because you knew who you were able to communicate that to the other person. And we don't see it. You have a lot of people with identity crisis these days. Yes. Pastor William, we talk about, these wives of Beverly Hills, they don't even know who they are or what they want.
Not at all.
This younger generation, their self-esteem is based on how many likes they get on Instagram. So if you're not whole, if you don't know who you are, then you have no business being with somebody else. Because you're not going to be able to commit to you don't even know who you are. So how can you expect to learn somebody else? Take the time to become whole, because then you're going to attract a person that's whole.
That's whole.
Laws of attraction. You attract somebody that's lacking something, or has a certain personality or certain traits. You got to look at yourself, because there's something inside of you that allowed you to attract that, allowed you to accept certain things you shouldn't have allowed. So again, you have to look at yourself in the mirror, and it's hard, but I promise you won't regret it.
Minister Lucy, that's a powerful message. Do you think young people will get that?
It's hard.
I do.
Yes. And I have two children of my own, and this is something that I've been trying to instill in them. My ex-husband, unfortunately, decided not to be involved in their lives. So I've had to help my children, especially my daughter, deal with that abandonment from, and I know it sounds cliche, but from the man that's supposed to show her how a man is supposed to love her and protect her and take care of her, not abandon her. So I've had to kind of take these two roles and then pull on my father and my pastor and other men to, come and be those male figures and role models that both my children, I have a son and a daughter, need. I do believe this generation can grasp that, but it's going to have to take people and ministers that are going to love them the way that God loves them. What do I mean by that? Jesus, every encounter that somebody had with Jesus, and if you look at the Bible, he didn't look at their current state. He saw them through his eyes. He saw what they actually were, how they're known. He knew their defects. You know, you look at the woman at the well, he knew what she was all about, but he didn't bring that up. He didn't judge her. Quite the contrary. Through his love, through that encounter, it transformed her enough for her to realize who she was, but then she came and realized who she truly was in him. She received the revelation of who she was, and then went and became an evangelist. You know what I mean? So yes, this generation can get that, but what we have to stop doing is, and unfortunately, a lot of the church does this, they judge them because they don't look a certain way, they don't talk a certain way, they don't act a certain way, you know. And in my mind, I'm like, you cannot look at people through your natural eyes as ministers, as pastors, as this place where, you know, as imagers of Christ, we are their first encounter. They're already dealing with self-esteem issues. They're already dealing with society, you know, criticizing them and dismissing them and thinking they're no good. And then they come to the place where we preach on love and we preach on acceptance, and then they get more, you know, you know, they experience quite the opposite, you know, then you're not going to reach them. You know, our jobs, and I think this is a mistake that the church makes. They think that our job is to change people. No, no, no. Our job is to love them. Our job, you know, it's Holy Spirit job to love them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So if they come with you and they can have a true love encounter with you, where you don't look at how they're dressed and all of that, but you love them, embrace them, allow them to have a place where they feel accepted. Then when you can open that up, because then that unlocks their heart, Holy Spirit takes over after that. Then transformation, change happens. And then they're able to receive, you know, what it is that we're speaking of tonight. And yes, I believe that this generation can receive that, but we're going to have to change the way we do things, especially in church.
That's good. Yeah.
Could I add on to something that I heard Minister Lucy say, if that's okay? And it's also in response to Bishop Wolliston. I agree wholeheartedly. I believe that this generation can receive, can hear, can learn. And I think sometimes that we might maybe presumably disqualify their ability to be able to receive the wisdom, the counsel. I have the privilege of being able to really, I have a whole, just a large group of young adults, millennials, Generation Zs, you name them, that they're hungry for God. They're hungry for God. They actually, they're submitted. They want wisdom. They want counsel. They want to be held accountable. So there is a remnant. There is a whole group of this generation and the youngers coming up that they want leadership. They want the examples. But what this generation needs more than anything is transparency. They need transparency. And I think that what has caused a little bit of the strain when it comes to creating and developing and curating healthy relational dynamics within the church is that one of the things that I've seen, and I say it to my church folk all the time, I say, one thing I notice about church folk is that we major in speaking in tongues without the ability to speak to one another. So, and if communication is one of the building blocks of healthy relationship, if we got a problem with each other on just a regular friendship relationship level, we got folk in different dialects from heaven, and they won't talk to each other about something that bothered them or rubbed them the wrong way in English or in the primary language that they speak. And so one of the things that we see again is just that the communication barriers create the strain on how to build healthy relationships. So we need both conversations. We need the Dr. Dolores Benz experience and her speaking of how her and Bishop Ben were able to really foster a healthy long-term successful marriage. We need the conversation from Minister Lucy. We need you know what I'm saying? We need all the perspectives. We need people to speak about their experiences. Like I very similarly in a way, me and Minister Lucy, I'm about to be 40 this year, and I got married young too. I'm a divorcee. Yeah, I know. Praise the
40
Lord.
Club is where it's at. Let me tell you.
and
Watch it.
Praise the Lord. But I got married young, and I'm a divorcee. And one of the things I could say in speaking to this conversation tonight is that, you know, me and my ex-wife, we were two different people. She's not a horrible person. In fact, we have a very good relationship and a very good co-parenting relationship right now. And we're co-parenting, and we do a great job with my daughter, if I do say so myself. But thank you. But the thing is, we were two different people. You understand? So if I'm speaking to this dynamic of should I stay or should I go, I'm going to tell you, I'm glad that both of us went. Because if we didn't go, first of all, I would not be, thanks be to God, and I say this humbly, I would not be who I am today and where I am today if I did not get out of the mistake. And I'm not saying this as a disrespectful anything towards her. She's a wonderful person. But she's a wonderful person, and I'm a wonderful person, and we are better off apart than we were in the marriage. But you see, a lot of this conversation, we don't give this type of conversation in the church. What we will do is we kind of sometimes force and pressure folk into toxic relational environments that end up destroying their purpose and destroying who God called them to be. And so and I know so many, you know, sadly enough, I do a lot of Christian counseling with marriages, believe it or not. The Lord said, I don't know, a divorced man, go tell it on the mountain. A divorced man that seems to always be found in a relational counseling situation. But can I tell you, a lot of folk are married in the church and are not happy. Yes. They're not. They're married and they're not happy. They're miserable. Yes. And they come in the routine of lifting up holy hands. And they're ready to kill each other. I do counseling with folk that on praise and worship team, on this, on that, on pastors and this and that and the other. And they were ready to kill each other before church. But in church, you couldn't stop the tongues.
My point, exactly.
You couldn't stop the tongues. So it's a real conversation. I think this panel, this is so needed. I think this is healthy dialogue. Man, I wish we had 500,000 of people on this panel, because I think that it's so needed, because it's a lot of cover-up. Sometimes people use marriage as a cover-up instead of the blessing of the institution that it's meant to be. So, but Minister Lucy, God bless you. Thank you for your transparency, Minister Dr. Jacqueline. I think these are conversations, and we need to hear all of these conversations. Dr. Ben, Bishop Wolliston, we need to hear it all perspectives. Absolutely. Because it's needed, I think, for the healthy perspective towards the seriousness of marriage, the sacredness of marriage, and the fact that you don't play with marriage. You don't use marriage as a cover-up. Yes. If you're not whole, if you're not right, if you got things going on, trust me, marriage is for grown folk. Marriage is for folk that marriage is for folk that really you have intentionality. You want stability, you want commitment, you want to build something. That's marriage. That's what whose marriage is for. Marriage is not for folk you just want to, look, we a power couple. We a power couple. And on social media, these social media marriages that every minute you see them smiling up a storm and they're miserable. I'm telling you, I'm just being transparent and I'm done. I have done counseling with folk that are ready to kill each other. And then the next day I see pictures. I'm getting passionate. I see pictures on Facebook and on Instagram, and they posing and they doing it all. And I'm like, wait, hold up a second. Weren't you just ready to kill homegirl? Just a what? So it's a pretense sometimes that gets forged from marriages because there's lack of transparency, and we try to act like, you know, we okay when we're not.
But I think also the conversation around marriage within the church, it needs to expand, because, you know, growing up, marriage, at least the way, you know, I heard it growing up and so forth, you know, yes, you talked about marriage, you know, don't have sex, you have married, you know, till you're married, don't do this, you know, you got to wait to get married, you get married, you get married, you get married. That's fine. But how about we start talking about the process and what it actually entails? So don't just talk just about marriage, but talk about what marriage actually entails. Talk about what you're going to have to commit to. Like, really, as you said, be transparent about it. Right. You know, get that counseling. And as you said, having the panel of understand that, hey, when you get married, it's more than just now you have a legal document to, you know, go have sex, or now you can, you know, sleep with someone, or now you're not alone. No. Marriage is this, and marriage requires this. And before you get married, you should think about this and this. And I mean, the conversations have to be a little bit more, yes. It has to be expanded, it has to be transparent. And here's the thing, it has to be real. You know what I mean? The church, they take all these topics that are actually create issues in marriages, and they don't want to talk about them because they consider them taboo to speak about them in church. No, you got to talk about it. You got to talk, you know, about, you know, let's take an issue that's very prominent in marriages. The differences and we're all grown folks here. You know, what are the differences when it comes to the individual sexual appetite? You know what I mean? Before you get married, y'all should have that conversation. You know what I mean? I'm not saying go do it. I'm saying have the conversation so that you know what is the compatibility, as Bishop Wolliston you talked about. You know what I mean? What are your styles with parenting? Do y'all want children? You know, what are the finances like? These are all crucial conversations, and unfortunately, relationships they don't have because they think they're taboo. And then people get married. One person wants to have sex on their birthday, and the other one wants it all the time. You're not compatible. It's going to cause an issue. You know what I mean? So these topics that churches think are taboo, you got to have them. And then you have, you know, now let's go outside of the church. There's a lot of times where outsiders, people who are not believers, are having these conversations. You know what I mean? They are having these open book conversations, and then they have better marriages than people inside the church. And it's a shame, because when you look at the statistics and you look at research, the highest percentage of divorces are not out there. They're within the church.
Right.
Because we don't keep it real.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And that's why we love the Bishop's Corner, because at least, as Bishop Wolliston would say, we're having the conversation. And that is so important. Amen. I believe that we should just put our hands together, because certainly I know that the Lord is doing something special tonight. Yes. But let me just say this, that marriage really are for people that are grown.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about by age, also mentally. Yes. Okay, because sometimes you can have people who are 35, 40, but mentally, they are midgets. They're not ready for marriage as yet, and so forth. And one of the things that is very, very much important is this, and someone was alluding to it. Okay, it puts me in mind that when the prodigal boy came home, decided that after the pigs had preached to him and tell him to go home in pig language, go home. He went home, and when his father saw him coming, okay, get the robe, get the shoes, get the ring, and so forth. Now, notice he was coming from out of the pig's pen. What about the washing? No, get the robe, get the shoes. His feet is dirty, but put it on. He's dirty all over, but put it on. Put the ring back on his finger. There are certain things that we do publicly, but there are certain things we also do privately. I'm sure that when the father got him into the house, he got a good scrubbing. But until then, cover him. cover,
Mm.
cover him. And that is so important. Well, ladies and gentlemen, listen, it's almost time to say goodnight on question number 1. We have a panel here. I don't know where you guys came from, but whenever we get together, we can't even get to question number 2. And question number 2, it's so important, is outgrowing a person ground for divorce. Now, I'm going to ask Pastor Ben in just a minute. What do you think it means by outgrowing a person?
Well, I did some research on that because it's a terminology that I've seen floated around. And from what the research says, outgrown means one person either remains stagnant in the marriage, while the other one becomes something like a super achiever. It can be one remains stagnant, I'm married, I'm contented. Whereas the other person, they're looking to advance themselves as whether it be a career, a profession. So it's, you start walking together and then you begin to take different paths.
Fantastic. Okay, now I know we only have 5 minutes left. Pastor Jacqueline, in 30 seconds, how do you feel about that?
I agree. I think that outgrowing a person is just that, is that you're in a marriage that, or relationship that someone, you're moving, but someone has gotten into a content place where they're content where they are. They're not looking to grow anymore, but then you're a person that's an overachiever that wants to keep moving, keep going, keep trucking. And I think that's it.
Okay, Miss Lucy, how say you?
I don't think we have enough time. It's a tough question. Only because I guess every case is individual. It is a little tough when, you have one person that's, growing, the other one stays stagnant, because you can have the feeling of this person's holding me back, or then, a disconnect happens, or this is a tough one. It can cause an issue. There can be a solution depending on what the other person's, the other person might be okay with them outgrowing and supporting them, but it can cause a disconnect within the marriage, especially if one person feels slighted, or it can create jealousy. And there's a lot to that question I don't think we can get to tonight, but I'm a little bit half and half on that one. Gotcha, woman of God. Okay, Pastor McGee, 15 seconds.
Yes, I would agree with Minister Lucy wholeheartedly. That's a tough one to encapsulate. It's broad spectrum, and there's different variables. And then there's also different types of people. Different types of people respond differently to growth and to the other person growing more than them. Jealousy can come in or something like that. And sometimes one outgrowing the other, it can foster a toxic environment. And I think the greater the toxicity is, the more you have to really think about, should I stay or should I go? Because mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, physical health, all of those things become very important. And I'm done because I know we're short on time.
Right. Okay, Bishop Neville Wolliston.
Yes, Bishop, we definitely need a whole hour for that question, an hour and a half, the whole program.
Yes.
But like Pastor McGee says, there are so many different variables. For me personally, I went to Bible school before my wife did. And because she obviously was raising the kids, or, nurturing the kids, so to speak. So what I did, Bishop, I taught her what I knew. Homiletics, she was a preacher, but, we didn't have the experience as theological experience. So I taught her the best I could until she could get herself into Bible school, because I didn't want to be up here and then she could barely exegete the text. So I did what I had to do because I wanted her to come along with me. So I will use one of Pastor McKee's phrases or words, intentionality. What are my intention? Because do I really want to outgrow her so that she's no longer my wife, or I divorce her? No, I want to be intentional. I want her to grow with me. But there are different variables, of course.
Beautiful. Okay, we have only 2 minutes left. Okay, we've heard a lot, we've said a lot. What should we take away from tonight's conversation. You've all got 10 seconds each. Dr. Ben, what should we take away?
Marriage is honorable, and it is worth fighting for, regardless what. I love the fact that you said marriage is for grown people. And when I'm addressing marriage, I'm not speaking of children. I'm speaking of grown folks who are prepared. And it's honorable. It's worth fighting for. And commitment is key to a successful marriage.
Thank you much. Pastor McGee.
Yes, I would say intentionality. That word has been coming up a lot. Transparency when it comes to really fostering the right environment to teach what a healthy marriage should be. I heard Minister Tracy talk about, Minister Lucy, talk about really teaching the process of it. So I think that teaching commitment, fostering healthy atmospheres where commitment is like the prioritized thing of the day, that creates a great, healthy household.
Thank you much. Okay, Minister Lucy.
I want to say that marriage is beautiful. I might be a divorcee, but I'm not jaded by it. Marriage is such a beautiful thing when you get to share your life with somebody who you love, who reciprocates, who loves you back. So I think, first taking the time for us to become whole individuals, and then taking those proper steps in your courting phase to really get to know the other person. And even though you guys are becoming one, but you accept and love each other also as individuals, in the marriage. So I think marriage is beautiful if you take the steps that we've spoken of here, that if you take it seriously, you commit to it. Marriage is just one of the most beautiful things that you can share your life with somebody. So absolutely, marriage is great.
Yes, it is. Thank you much. Okay, Pastor Jacqueline.
Bishop, let's see what I can crunch this down to.
You got 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
Okay, Bishop Wolliston. I would say that marriage is honorable, and it's a great thing to have. It never stop working on it. Always work.
Thank you much. Okay, Bishop Neville Wolliston.
Marriage is a good idea because it's God's idea.
Amen. Marriage is a good idea because it's God's idea. Okay, marriage can be beautiful if both people have the same desires. Listen, thank you very much, one and all, for weighing in tonight on the Bishop's Corner. We want to thank God for the panel that did a tremendous job. The question is, should I stay or should I go? God bless you. See you next week on the Bishop's Corner. Bye-bye.
Bless you.
Bye, everyone. Bless you.
Bye, everyone.
Hi, everyone. My name is Philip Reed, and I'm the president and CEO for Phoenix National Network. I'm so proud to celebrate the second year of the Bishop's Corner on June 10th and 11th of this year. And we're going to be having a wonderful concert of celebration with Dwight Strouder and his team, and it's going to be a wonderful time. I want to invite you all to join us. The details for this event will be shown at the bottom of the screen. So if you are interested in coming out on June 10th for the concert, you can reach me at 914-297-7624 for more information. Also, this is going to be a great 2-day event. That is 2 days. So we have hotels that are already reserved for you on a low rate, and I have limited rooms. So please register with the hotels that are being issued to you at the bottom of the screen as well, so that you can get the best price for this 2-day event, because we will be at Lake Compounds in Connecticut, right? In Bristol, Connecticut. And we're getting a great rate for everyone to come out and have a great time. There will be food there. It'll be complimentary, free food, discounted rates, so you can bring the entire family to this great event. Also, we're doing a $1,000 giveaway on Friday night for anyone who is in attendance to the concert. So all you have to do is buy a ticket, reserve your seat, and get a chance to win $1,000. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.